All right, that particular story was filed by our reporter, Mark Namaswa. Now, creating context for our discussion at this particular hour, joining me in studio is Pauline Vata. She's the CEO of Haki, Jamii, an organization that deals a lot with the issues to do with eviction and demolitions. And currently, they're key in the negotiations that are going on the issue affecting about thousands of Kibra residents who are expected to be evicted to allow for road expansion along that particular line. Thank you very much, Pauline, for joining us now. This is just one of the very recent incidences we are seeing. I mean, your thoughts? We just saw the tough wars going on, or the row going on with Kibra, now this, and it's not just this. There are so many others happening in the city. What are your thoughts from Haki, Jamii?
I think for us, evictions has been something we have been dealing with for such a long time. And now what's happening is that we have normalized evictions in the country, despite us having laws under the Landlords Amendment Act. It gives procedure on how evictions should take place. In public land, the National Land Commission is supposed to undertake those evictions. There's supposed to be 3-month notice, and a gazette notice is supposed to be done to that effect. On private land, the procedure is the same. There's supposed to be a notice that is given. And for the people being evicted, they also have to have the opportunity to go to court and challenge the evictions. So what we are seeing now, it's arbitrary demolition of property. And in the past, we had this notion that evictions are just for the poor. Now people in Mutindwa, businessmen, are losing their property. And that is when we have so much public outcry. Everybody wondering what is going on. We also have this committee, an arbitrary committee that was formed on regeneration of Nairobi. I have been looking for a gazette notice that put them there. What powers do they have? What are their terms of reference? I've not been able to get anything. And they're the ones issuing eviction notices, like what happened in Kibra.
Yes.
So who exactly are these people and where are they getting their mandate from? We have a law that clearly states who should undertake evictions and the time that should happen. Most of these evictions are happening in the morning. We have children in class 8 who are about to sit for their KCPE, KCSE examinations. So we are really damaging the society as a whole. It's not just property, but also psychology, your economic livelihoods on a day-to-day basis. So who's going to compensate and pay for that?
So what are you saying? The processes and the kind of procedures that are being followed are currently very wanting?
Yes, actually there's no procedure being followed. Somebody just wakes up in the morning and decides to evict people. And as I said before, it's because we thought evictions only happen to a certain class of people at the bottom. And now that it's happening to everybody, people are starting to get concerned on how evictions should take place. But the norm is that if the law is not followed from the word go, then we create anarchy. And that's what is happening. We have businessmen who have their businesses demolished in the thousands. We have people in Kibra being evicted in the thousands. We have Mau Forest now. People are also being evicted in the thousands. There's no notice that has been given. And these are people that are not only losing their property, also their livelihoods, and other things that cannot be quantified in terms of compensation monetary-wise. So it's time that we really followed the law. Otherwise, even people with title deeds will be evicted because the sanctity of title deeds is now being questioned. If I have a title deed and still the government comes with a bulldozer, then what is it that we are saying? The same people at Mutindwa, the government has been seeing them erect their small stalls there for years and years and years. Yeah. Why is it the government plans so meticulously for infrastructure, for roads and for everything else, but they do not plan for people? The same money that was used to construct the road that's been used to construct the road in Kibera is enough for slum upgrading. Why don't you just do slum upgrading and then create access roads for everybody? The roads will be used by a certain section of people, and the other section will have paid because they'll lose their homes, they'll lose their livelihoods, they'll have to move out. And it has been an issue that has been there for so many years. Government has had enough time to plan for these people. But what the easiest and cheapest way to do is just to flatten people's homes, and that's, it's unacceptable.
Ideally, how would you have expected this to pan out, and not just for the Kibra case, but what we also witnessed yesterday?
I think, our law is very clear on what needs to happen. It's not adequate. Much more needs to be put in the eviction and resettlement procedures law, as in the Land Laws Amendment Act. But what should have been the procedure that should have been taken is that, first of all, government needs to have put a notice of not less than 3 months. Secondly, is that the notice needs to be put in places that people can see. So, for instance, if it's Mutindwa, it should have been put in at least 5, 6 places, that this place is going to be demolished within a given period of time. Only then can you start doing enumeration. So how many people will be affected? Is there a compensation that the government needs to give to these people? And you can only do that if you have planned yourself well. Now, let me just give an example of Kibra. What they're doing is the opposite. They wanted to flatten people's homes. There was public outcry. Human rights organizations came and said, no, you have to follow due process. Now it's when they're doing enumeration, putting people in a certain database to compensate. We shouldn't have things working backwards, because the minute you plan for a road, you have money, both for constructing the road and for the resettlement action plan. So all these people who are affected are supposed to be in a resettlement action plan, where they're given compensation or alternative resettlement to where they're supposed to be heading to. Again, we need to differentiate. If it's public land, and we have normalized this so much, is that you even see the chief, or is it the DC, giving eviction notices, who has given them that mandate? And we are so okay with it, and people keep moving out. It's the National Land Commission that's supposed to give notices when evictions are taking place in public land. It's supposed to be in a gazette notice way in advance to give people time to prepare themselves, not only to move, but psychologically, to prepare school-going children on where they need to go to school in case the evictions happen and it affects their schools. Right now in Kibra, you find that people who are going to sit for the Standard 8 exam, some of the examination centers have been flattened. People have already registered for KCPE. Where will they do their KCPE examinations?
Are these some of the issues that are coming out as you try to negotiate for the people of Kibra?
Yes, these are some of the issues, and some of them are very sensitive, and the process is still ongoing. So I really don't want to talk much about it. But yes, these are some of the issues that are coming out very clearly, and there is not much that has been done to address this issue, especially for the school-going children. Again, most of these children were going to the non-formal schools. So what happens when they're evicted? Will they be absorbed in public schools? The distance, because you find their parents will have to go and find alternative homes somewhere else. So what will be the commute distance between the public schools that they will be taken to and where the parents will be living? So there are all these things and considerations that need to be taken into account. It's not just waking up one morning, flattening people's homes, destroying their livelihoods, destroying their, economic activities, and just causing chaos all over.
What would you say is the status of, I know you can't really get into the details, but where are we now with the negotiations for the Kibra residents? Because we understand the eviction notice apparently was supposed to elapse on the 16th. That was like 4 days ago.
So I think the Kenya Urban Roads Authority that's constructing the road entered into a negotiation led by the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. And one of the basic things was that they need to enumerate people who will be affected so that compensation is undertaken. That process is still ongoing, and we are hopeful it will yield to the results that we are hoping for. And these people need to be put in a resettlement action plan where they will be compensated based on the value of their homes that they have. Again, we also have the National Land Commission that has stepped in to value property of some of the people that have structures in Kibra so that they can be able to be given value for money for the structures that they will lose. And we are also hopeful that this process will go on well. So far, there has been a lot of goodwill from people on the ground, and they have cooperated very well, and the process is almost coming to an end. But I think for now, that is what I can comment. More details will come as and when the process continues and is finalized.
Going forward, I mean, we've talked about our inadequacies in procedures and the law. Do you expect that maybe it's time to relook at some of the land amendment laws and issues to do with eviction and demolitions to pave way for whatever might be the reason?
You know, I think one of the things that really ails us, and especially when it comes to evictions, is that they're politicized. So there's no much time to follow the law. It's either your MP comes out, speaks for you, or if they don't speak out for you, you're evicted in such an inhumane way. So I think there needs to be a standard on how evictions need to happen. Yeah. You know, Kura cannot compensate people in Kibra and then tomorrow evict another place. It needs to be standard. And our law, you know, has its inadequacies, but it also has the option for regulations on how these evictions need to happen. So the regulations need to be done, because they've not been done to date, on how the process of evictions need to take place. But we also had a bill, an eviction and resettlement bill, that was not passed as a standalone law. The politicians at that time, Parliament, said that we have so many landlords and they did not want to duplicate. So in the spirit of not duplicating many laws, we need regulations just on evictions, on how these evictions need to take place. We also have international law that we are signatories on as a country. And we have general comments under international law that state exactly how evictions need to take place. They need to take place you know, during the day. They need to take place in good weather. Government officials need to identify themselves. The police who come to beat up people are actually supposed to be there to provide security, not to beat up people the way we normally see. And security for people not to lose their property. So we have laws, just that we choose not to follow them as a country.
Pauline, thank you very much for joining us here on KTN News Desk and just letting us in to understand what really is wrong and why we keep seeing this demolition day in, day out. Pauline Vata is the CEO of Haki, Jamii, once again, and